For over a century, capitalism and socialism have waged one of the loudest, longest arguments in human history, an argument that outlived revolutions, toppled empires, bankrupted superpowers, and split the world in half. But here's the part no ideology warrior ever tells you. Neither system worked the way the textbooks promised, not once. Not anywhere. And when real pressure hit war, famine, inflation, collapse, the truth revealed itself with brutal clarity. Welcome to Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The story begins long before anyone said capitalism or socialism. For most of human history, the economy wasn't an economy, it was survival. Kings claimed divine right, landlords owned the land, peasants worked just enough to avoid starving. Productivity barely moved for thousands of years. If someone gained, someone else lost, a zero-sum world built on land, labor, and war. The idea that ordinary people could get rich through trade or innovation, that would have sounded insane. Then the Industrial Revolution blew the world open. Late 1700s Britain became a pressure cooker of coal, iron, capital, and ambition. Machines replaced muscle, factories replaced workshops, and a new kind of power emerged. The power of private capital. For the first time, individuals, not kings, could invest, risk, and own at massive scale. Capitalism produced more wealth, more goods, and more speed than humanity had ever seen. But it also produced misery, child labor, slums, toxic air, and inequality, growing faster than any society in history. Capitalism was powerful, but brutal, and from that brutality, something new was born. By the mid-1800s, thinkers like Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels looked at the smokestacks and sweat-soaked factories and came to one conclusion: the problem wasn't the workers. The problem was the system. They saw capitalist profit as stolen labor opportunity. Built on exploitation, their solution sounded elegant and moral. Workers own, the factory's profits are shared. Production serves human needs, not private gain. Dignity replaces desperation for millions living under grinding industrial capitalism. Socialism didn't sound utopian. It sounded like justice. But theory is clean. Real life isn't. After the Russian Revolution in 1917, Lenin inherited famine, illiteracy, chaos, and a collapsed empire. The Soviets built a new operating system. State-owned land, state-owned factories, state-owned everything. Central planning instead of markets, quotas instead of prices. In theory, perfect equality. In practice, disaster. Without market prices, planners had no idea what people needed. Without competition, factories didn't innovate. Without incentives, workers did the minimum. Shortages became normal, lines became culture, and agriculture collapsed into famine. Even Lenin quietly reversed course, reintroducing small-scale private trade just to prevent the country from dying. But while socialism struggled, capitalism wasn't exactly thriving either. By the early 1900s, capitalism had produced enormous wealth and enormous instability. Speculators dominated markets, monopolies dominated industries, inequality hit grotesque levels. Then came 1929. The Great Depression wasn't a recession. It was a total system failure. 1/4 of Americans were unemployed. Banks collapsed. Global trade disintegrated. 2 millions watching capitalism crumble. Socialism didn't look radical anymore. It looked like a rescue plan. Then came the pressure test of all pressure tests, World War II. The Soviet Union mobilized its entire society with terrifying speed, a brutal advantage of total state control. Meanwhile, capitalist America transformed into the world's greatest industrial machine, powered by private innovation, supercharged by government coordination. When the war ended, ideology didn't matter. Results did. GDP, growth, living standards, technology. From 1945 to 1991, the world became a giant laboratory. On one side, central planning, state control, suppressed markets. On the other, regulated capitalism, private enterprise, safety nets learned from the Great Depression. The results were undeniable. The Soviet Union industrialized rapidly, but stagnated. A country that built rockets couldn't build a decent refrigerant. The West surged ahead, adapting, innovating, reinventing itself again and again. By the 1980s, the Soviet model couldn't compete, and in 1991, it collapsed, not from invasion, but from empty shelves, broken incentives, and an economy that simply stopped working. The Cold War ended, but capitalism's contradictions didn't. The 1990s and 2000s unleashed global supply chains, financialization, debt-driven growth, housing bubbles, speculative markets, inequality surged again. And in 2008, capitalism crashed again, almost taking the world with it. Meanwhile, socialism returned, but softly. Universal health care, debt-free education, wealth taxes, stronger worker power, not Soviet-style control, but Scandinavian-style. Balance. Here's the uncomfortable reality. Today, no major country is purely capitalist or purely socialist. Every successful system is a hybrid. Markets plus safety nets, private innovation plus public infrastructure, competition plus protection. The countries that thrive aren't the most ideological. They're the most flexible. Authoritarian capitalism. Scandinavia, high-tax capitalism with social guarantees. The U.S. hyper-capitalist innovation with weak protections. The truth is simple. Systems don't shape people. People shape systems. Human nature expresses itself everywhere. In capitalism, greed, innovation, until exploitation. In socialism, equality, unity, until repression, different rules, same humans. So the real question was never capitalism or socialism. The real question is, which system has the best tools to restrain power, correct mistakes, and reward useful behavior? History gives a clear answer. The system that adapts survives. Capitalism reinvented itself again and again. Socialism collapsed where it refused to evolve, and thrived where it blended with markets. Ideology didn't win. Adaptation did. Every modern economy, including yours, is a product of this century-long tug-of-war. Every safety net, every regulation, every market rule, every welfare program, every financial crisis is a scar from this battle. The future won't belong to capitalism or socialism. It will belong to countries that can balance private creativity, public stability, innovation, fairness, freedom, resilience. Because the fight was never about theory. It was always about power. And power doesn't disappear. It just changes hands. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.